questions about it, we'll follow up at that point. And also, speaking of Thursday night, Judge Seeley will be here as the first speaker. And she'll be here only briefly, and then we're going to have the rest of the time to kind of review some things. But I'm real interested in any issues and questions you identify that feel unsettled for you. That'll be a chance to talk those things through, and that will be our last time together until you get the call for a case. And, we do have. We will be having smaller group meetings first week in November.
Yeah, the 2nd and the 3rd.
Yeah, what we do is every month we get together and it's usually.
Yeah, definitely.
Bye, Dan.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. We let the cat in again.
It's okay, we like the cat.
But we get together every month and we have 2 meetings, and you just pick the one that's more convenient for you. And it's primarily case focused. Even though you may not have a case, you're certainly welcome to sit in. And we use the time generally to staff cases, and I usually try to give any any new news that's come along that pertains to CASA, but it's mostly to look at cases. And it's an opportunity for some support and to meet some other CASAs. And, those notices, I guess, will be going out here.
Yeah, I just sent an email. Actually, all of you should have gotten one. So if you didn't, then let me know and I'll
I don't
check.
have email.
Okay, so then I guess for all these things, we can just give you a call and let you know when we have trainings coming up.
Okay, I do have a message machine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the court reports.
Is this the court report?
That is a court report, and if you'll remember Ann Gilkey, she was here with Mike Jetty talking about the Indian issues and the Indian Child Welfare Act. She was the CASA on this case. This is an interesting case. As you'll see on the front, this is a permanency hearing, and this is her report for a permanency hearing. And Carolyn actually alluded to this case when she talked to us. This is a case where we actually...
With your case, so it's different
I
than
don't think
mine.
we have what
What do
you
you
got.
have?
No, we don't
Yeah.
have
Long copies or something.
I was wondering why. So should we give this one back?
Yeah, what is, that's a treat, is that a treat?
Treatment plan.
Keep that, because I was going to talk about that Thursday night.
Okay.
So, and then we have something about a report to the
Yeah.
board,
Yeah.
but it's not a report.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you mind running?
Yeah.
Get over here. Got a staple for. I'm sorry about that. But I'll just tell you a little bit about this case. This was a case where it was one of those cases where we could not come to terms with the department. And it was a matter where the parents, there had been 2 removals previous to the one that we were dealing with. And they'd gone through treatment plans and been successful. And again, they had a treatment plan ordered, and they were doing just a spectacular job with the treatment plan. But we were like 18 months into this case now, and so. And
18 months into the 3rd removal,
no,
or 18 months
no,
total?
But the 2 children had been returned, and within, well, I don't know what it was, 6 weeks or whatever, were removed again. But anyway, this 3rd time around, and it looked a little different this time around. I mean, it sincerely looked like they had made a commitment and were given full effort to the rehab process they needed to go through for themselves. But in our minds, there'd been so much damage done to these kids, and that we just didn't feel like we could chance it. The kids were special needs kids. They were placed with actually a kin family that had gone so far above and beyond in terms of getting these kids to endless number of appointments, following through with all the recommendations that the providers are making. And we just felt like we just can't chance it. The department's feeling is that, yeah, we know the history, but our job is reunification, and these people have made the strides, and so we feel obligated to give them that opportunity. So it came to a showdown in the court, and Ann Gilkey prepared this report. Peter Bovington was the attorney for the child in this case, and you haven't met Peter, but you might. He's a CASA as well now. And so we threw it out there and made the case, and Judge Sherlock ruled in our favor, and then the matter was appealed, and we were worried about the appeal, but it was upheld. And it was a pretty neat deal, but Ann put together the report, which you'll see in a little bit. And it was just a report that just got right to the facts, and built the argument that we were trying to make, and was, I think, a pretty compelling piece of work. And so I give that to you just as kind of something to use as a guide when you come to preparing reports. Let me talk about this little two-pager. I'm just going to highlight a few things. Number one is that the court report is our primary means of communication with the court, with the judge, and to do a report, well, you obviously have to have some facts to report, and that, of course, comes through the investigative process. And I mentioned in here in the first paragraph the obvious about keeping notes and just maintaining documentation for the work you're doing that you can refer back to when it comes time to sit down and pull together your thoughts about what goes into the report. I mentioned that most of the information is going to be coming from the interviews and from the case, or from the records that you'll see, and most of the stuff you'll see comes from the department records. I want to remind you again, I think I mentioned this, that you will be given access to the file at the department, but you may not depart from the office with that in hand. When it comes time, either myself or the mentor assigned will guide you through that process and make contact with the department to have the file available, and they'll provide a place to look at it. As I probably mentioned before too, oftentimes there have been multiple referrals in cases, and so there may be a substantial amount of information available, more than you would even hope for. I indicate that there's certain sections of the record where you'll find the most pertinent information. There's a lot of stuff in the record that would just be a waste of time to look at, a lot of eligibility stuff and so forth. Again, I know I've mentioned this before, the most confidential thing that we will lay eyes upon is the informant's name, the person that made the report, and that must never be divulged. So keep that in mind. The report itself, we need to have it filed at least 5 days before they
Now, I
go
assume
ahead.
that if we talk to the person who made the report, they would be listed as an information source, but they would just not be noted as being the original complainant.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
question.
Another thing to keep in mind is that there will be some cases where we don't want the foster parents identified, and in that case, just keep that in mind, that we will not be entering the foster parents' names into the report.
Will you discuss the foster parents and call them foster parents?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. but, you know, the first thing when you see Ann's report, you'll see, well, actually on this one pager, the first item is the sources of information. And in the case of the foster parents, even though you may have gathered information from them, you use discretion, or if there's good cause not to identify them, just don't add them into that section. Back to the 5 working days, we just need that report filed ahead of time. The attorneys will all get copies. Every party in the case will get a copy. And so in some of these cases, we may have 3 dads. And so there'll be an attorney for each of these fathers, plus the mother, plus the child's attorney, plus the county attorney, plus the social worker, so there can be a lot of copies. And when we do I'll talk about this in just a second, but I'll take care of the distribution of the report, so you don't need to worry about that.
So wait a minute, I need to ask. So we give you the original report and you make all the copies
Yeah.
and distribute, okay?
Yeah.
So do you have to get it to court 5 days before the hearing? So how much do we have to get it to you so that you have time to distribute it? And
Well, we usually, you know, we know where these reports are generally filed. They'll be filed at the review hearing, that's 6 months in. At the permanency hearing, that's 12 months in. And there may be occasions where there's a specialty hearing, like a treatment plan hearing, where we may want to file a report, but there will be sufficient time. You know, we know from the show cause time when the review hearing is going to be, and that's going to be at least, you know, 5 months down the road. So I usually remind classes like a month ahead that we need to get a report.
so you can give us like a date that you need to get?
Yeah, yeah, and you will have the date for the hearing. So what we generally do is that either you and I will sit down, or you and the mentor assigned to sit down, identify what you feel are the key facts of the case that we need to get across to the judge, and then begin a drafting process. And with the people I supervise directly, it's just we sit down together, figure out an outline of what we want to present, go over the specific content, and then I'll ask you to just run out a draft and email it to me, and then we'll just go through an email back and forth process till we got it the way we want it. And that's usually only a couple of exchanges before it's in the shape we need it.
I assume we're only, that in terms of us emailing in and back and forth, we're only dealing with the body and not with the little fuzz on top here.
Yeah, I appreciate it when the CASA does the formatting thing.
Oh, okay.
But I often end up just doing the format. If I've got the text itself.
Easy enough to do.
Yeah,
I'm just was interested in what you wanted.
yeah.
I missed that piece, what was that?
To build the boilerplate in front.
Yeah, I do appreciate when the CASA does that, but I certainly do it if it's not there.
So we don't have a sample report, do we?
This is one.
This is a report.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it, I'm sorry. Cass's report, okay.
Where am I? Oh yeah, what I've just said probably negates the need to say this, but I do need to review the report before it gets filed. I had a real bad experience where we had a report filed that I didn't see, and it wasn't good. And there'll need to be, if there are multiple kids, there has to be a separate report for each one, even though it may be the same information except for some entry specifically about the child named in that particular
I
report.
think this one looks like it has two kids.
in it.
It does, yeah. And And we can do them this way. We can, as long as we list separate cause numbers, we can combine the reports. The problem is that, and this came from a recent conversation I had with one of the judges, and the feedback she gave me is that, you know, I would really appreciate seeing more about the child, the individual child, and helping make that child a little more real for me.
Or just
and
combined effort,
yeah.
history.
And it can be done in, you know, doing it the style Ann did. It's just you're gonna list the child, give your summary about the child, then list the next child, give the summary about that child. So you can do it in one document, but when you get the material from the court, you're gonna see that there's a separate documents for each child. There's a separate petition, a separate affidavit, etc. But they cut us a little more slack. The critical thing is that cause number, because the clerk of court won't let you file anything unless all the cause numbers for all the kids are there. And so we do have to have a separate copy for each child.
Well, in all reality, in this day and age, if you've got one and you've only got a few changes to make from one to the other, you know, it's bang, bang, and you know, you're talking minutes at the most.
Yeah.
Right, and so at the top, and this information at the top would be there too.
Yeah,
With
you
your
know,
own
we
name.
don't, Ann's an attorney, so with the reports most of our causes do, they don't have the personal identifying information up at the top that Ann included.
Oh.
It just starts with the First Judicial District. I mentioned 3 or 4 pages. The judges are inundated with stuff, and they really appreciate a report that's succinct and to the point, and doesn't take them a half hour to read. So, and usually 3 or 4 pages will do it for you.
Are they typically double spaced like this?
You know, the ones I do are not, but I
We'll shorten them, what's wrong?
yeah, it'll shorten the number of pages. I
Avoid
usually-
acronyms?
Yeah, you know, acronyms, abbreviations and stuff, you know, that when Mark and
There's some
Dennis
in
were
here.
talking to
Yeah.
you know, it's just part of their language and they don't even
Do
realize.
you really avoid them, or do you know, obviously with my background, I was taught to use tons of acronyms, and the first time you ever used one, every single time, PowerPoint, written or otherwise, you defined it.
Yeah,
at
yeah,
first use.
and I,
You can
and
do
I
that?
do that too. you
Because
know.
I see there's some in here.
Yeah, you know, if it's like, foster care review committee, everybody refers to that as FCRC. And so if you say that, FCRC, then define
Right.
it. But I heard it was Judge McCarter that got real upset one day reading the report, and it was actually a social worker's report. And she said, you guys need to spell this out. I don't understand what you're talking about. Okay, the layout, again, sources of information, and this can be it's a real simple thing, but it really gives some credibility and some verification that you've really done the legwork, you know, when you covered your bases, and it's right there for the judge to see.
Well, I have a when you have these people like pediatricians and neurologists and stuff like that, do you just write to them and ask them to send you the records, or do they actually talk to you? I mean, I can never get a doctor to talk to me.
No, usually like with Ann, she actually converses with all of these people.
Okay, so typically they will
Have a phone conversation or a
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah,
Phone conversation.
yeah.
The other thing I noticed is the opening sentence is personal, or, I'm sorry, the assessment, I am a firm believer that children belong with their birth parents. that just standard procedure
Do we
to
put
write
that in?
that?
Yeah.
Or that's?
Well, that's when you're about to say, but not this.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
you saying
exactly, yeah, this is how you're gonna
The
present
parents
yourself,
above.
right,
This
yeah.
time, not.
I mentioned
Just
in
to add,
in
yeah.
this, on this sheet, when we get over on the second page, there's a thing on assessment, and I do mention about it being, you're, can become a little more subjective there, but it really all needs to relate back to what you placed into the text when you're describing the background and the current situation. And so, it's kind of just pulling it all together and it's the lead into the
Right,
recommendation.
okay.
In this particular case, did the children's attorney argue that they should be taken away from the parents, or that, okay, so
Yes.
there was an attorney that
Yep.
agreed?
There was an attorney other than Ann.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Peter Bovington was
Okay.
representing the children, and Ann was the CASA, and Carolyn was the county attorney. And Carolyn was real nervous about it. We had kind of an interesting meeting, a couple weeks before the hearing, and Dennis Molnar was the worker supervisor and the social worker. And Ann and I went over and met with them and laid out our case essentially and what we plan to do. And they actually had no issue whatsoever. And it was like, you know, if we thought we could do it, we would do exactly what you guys are doing, but we can't go there. And so it was kind of neat, you know. It was like we were on opposite sides in court, but nonetheless agreeing that this is the best way to go. And Carolyn was real torn too, but she had to, you know, do what she had to do.
On the history summary, historical summary, that's where we go and read all the records.
Yeah, you'll get just about all of that out of the records, although parents will tell you a lot. And actually that background or historical summary, whichever term you want to choose, really begins with the placement, you know, that I was appointed on such and such a date, and the situation at that time was, you know, child removed because of parents' arrest, or, you know, just lay out how you got into the case, and then you can just add in if there is a past history, just to show that, you know, this is this is not the first time around, and there's been some long-standing issues, if in fact that's the case. I mentioned under the current situation about the treatment plan, and between now and Thursday night, if you would, just kind of read through that. This is a very typical treatment plan, but it's really the core that you center your report around. These are the things the parent must do in order to accomplish a reunification and ultimately a dismissal of the case. And so the court is really honed in on this, so they're going to want our take on how the parents are doing with respect to the treatment plan. And when you get into the hearings, typically what we had one yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Where Tara just took the social worker through every point on the treatment plan and wanted the worker to give an account of what the parent had or hadn't done on each item. And we'll want to do a similar thing so that the judge gets also the CASA's take on. And some people have different views as to how.
So does each parent, even if they're in a home together, they each have their own plan no matter what? each parent, or is it sometimes this is the parents?
It's, well, they will each get their own individual treatment plan, but oftentimes it's the very same stuff.
Okay.
Treatment.
As long as we talked about treatment plans, you know, I was gonna leave this for Thursday. But here, the first things here are talking about his, if you look at number 2, to assist whoever in assessing his strengths and weaknesses as a parent. Now, are we assuming that this is the male friend who isn't really a parent that's referring to?
You're looking at the other case.
Well, I think that's the dad, isn't
No,
it?
Yeah.
she
I
has a
don't
dad.
know. That was my question.
I would guess it's the dad, because
Yeah.
she does have him.
I need
Oh,
to,
I see what he's saying, because there's two.
Yeah, I know.
I
I don't see any real reference to the father.
I would say it's
And-
the
and-
dad because they specifically write in here that the male friend is not to have any contact with the children or the lady going forward.
Well, I don't think a
Yeah, but
treatment
that
plan
says
can
it was a report
bring in
given
someone
though.
who's not a
Right,
parent.
they're not making a treatment plan for just whoever comes
For
to
some
the house.
honey, it's like.
Okay, you guys are doing a better answering that than I am. I'll have to read this between now and then.
I don't know, how'd you read that so fast? Well, I'm confused about the timeframes, because in this, I thought originally when we had these people speaking to us, that they said something about something had to be done in 20 days. The hearing has to be done in 20 days.
Different hearing, yeah.
Yeah,
From
it
the
has to be,
time-
there's the show cause hearing, has to happen within that time frame, but,
And that's not what we're,
no, I'm not sure that we've ever filed a report for a show cause hearing, although we certainly have testified at them. But generally, we don't have a lot of information together by the time the show cause comes around.
okay.
And so we do our best, you know, meet with parents, meet with the child, make the calls we can, but,
Before the show cause hearing?
yeah.
Okay.
And it's all been just oral testimony that we
Okay.
provided with the show cause. But for the review, you know that's coming, the date's set 6 months in advance, so we've got time to pull everything together and get something filed.
That's a long time. Is that typical, 6 months?
Yeah, when Greg Hansel was still on the bench, he required a status hearing every 90 days. The other judges, sometimes they do, I see that, I expect Judge Reynolds is gonna be doing that just based on some of the things, that I've seen in this court. So,
Could we just go over sort of the general timeline, because I'm not sure, so generally we find out that we're appointed on a case before the order to show cause hearing, and we start talking to people. Then there's the order to show cause hearing, which now isn't usually contested unless someone wants it to be, right, if this is the new law. So
Mhm.
then after that, when does the treatment plan, or when does the treatment plan get adopted? Is it after
It's,
that, or is it?
well, following adjudication, however we get to adjudication, either through stipulation or through a contested hearing. But once the adjudication occurs, then,
Oh, okay.
it's
Yeah,
incumbent
that's-
upon the department to get a treatment plan put together. And we've actually set up, Katie's been involved in a group that I've also been involved with the judge and Tara and John Moe from the Public Defender's Office and Carolyn and Mark from the department, and we've been hashing through that stuff, and we've actually laid out kind of a time frame for following adjudication, that there be a treatment plan meeting where the week within, 7 days or 5 days or whatever it is, after adjudication, there's a treatment plan meeting where the treatment plan's developed. So there isn't a great deal of time following adjudication before we've got a treatment plan.
Can we
That
have-
was a big problem
Yeah,
in the past. We'd go up to 6 months and not have a treatment plan.
Right.
And
So, but for, kind of for like, so when we have a lot of work at the beginning, talking to people, and then there's orders show cause, and let's say they find cause, and so they usually do. Then, when is the adjudication, do we write a report for adjudication hearing? No? Okay, so,
What's adjudication hearing?
It's where they make the finding whether or not this is a case that meets the definition, or the children meet the definition of a youth in need of care, or in other words, a dependent, neglected youth. It's sort of the finding of guilt, in effect.
After the hearing, the first hearing.
Well,
well,
the way
orders to
things are
show
working-
cause is like a lower standard, so
Yeah.
it's like you just have to have some reason, so
Well,
that
I
they know
mean-
you aren't randomly taking kids.
Oh, so you don't have that, and then the adjudication is based on all that was presented at this hearing?
Adjudication is all more of
Okay.
it.
So do we have anything in everything you've given us that's just a general
Timeline?
breakdown
Do you
timeline?
want me
'Cause
to
that would help
Print out the
really.
flow chart, I mean, it's,
A
Yeah.
flow, that would be
Proposed,
really
but-
helpful for
Yeah.
me to just get it in my head, all these
Because it
pieces.
sounds as different legal things
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah, Katie
Because,
put
you know, we've
together-
heard about these family meetings or things that we
Mhm.
go to, so I would imagine that is occurring like after adjudication, before the treatment plan, or?
Actually, well, just to confuse things.
Really, I know. Clever having mentors, that's all I can say.
That's true.
Yeah.
I just tried to get a picture.
Yeah, I know, I want to know.
What we're trying to get to is a family group conference within 7 days of filing.
Whoa.
In some cases,
So that's even before,
That's fast.
before any court hearing?
yeah, it would be before the court hearing.
Oh, well, that, I mean, I probably sooner the better, so.
Yeah, and part of the idea of that is that some of these cases actually can be worked out without carrying them on to court.
That's a great idea.
So
Good.
I've got, I think I got one laying right on the desk.
Oh, yeah.
So how do these families come,
Yeah, I've got
how
one
do
here.
they,
Okay, you just want me to make copies?
How do they get cases?
no, how do families, get, how are they suspected, or who finds out that they need to be,
Somebody's either called the hotline for
It's
child
a
protective
report.
service.
It's like when, you know, when you have some neighbors that you're concerned about.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like you
just
call.
like that. They just report it.
so,
Anybody
so then someone goes to the home, after the CPS worker goes to the home?
And it's law, isn't it, that they have to check every case? They just can't, it's called in?
Eventually.
Or
Well,
do
they
they
go,
not?
they go through a sorting screening process.
Of the, like anonymous caller, of the information given?
Well, what they do, like, I think Mark was talking about that, it's central intake. They categorize the case as to whether it is a priority one that has to have a call out or an investigation within 24 hours, and then there's a priority two, and then it goes down the line. Some of the cases they see, or they determine, do not need investigation at all, but simply it's considered an informational report that's sent back to the department saying that somebody called in but no investigation needed. So it's all pretty much categorized.
How are most of the cases brought to attention?
Well, through the reporting, you know, I think Tara mentioned the mandatory reporting statute that requires people to
Like
make reports.
teachers or?
Yeah, but anybody can make a report, there's certain mandatory ones, and that's where just about
I
everything
reported.
comes from.
I reported my name.
Thank you.
You reported your neighbor?
Yeah, she stuck her hand, she was punishing her son for playing with fire or something. She stuck his hand in a pot of boiling water,
Whoa,
and they didn't do squat. But I did report her.
But I assume that something like that would stay reported, wouldn't it? So if somebody else reported something else,
Yeah.
It's a,
yeah.
that's what you're saying, there could be lots of referrals
Yeah.
Right.
that you'd
Yeah.
see.
So, yeah, while they might not have done
Right.
squat with yours, if your neighbor on the other side reported her 2 months later, then something might happen.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, but
you
it's-
remember,
it's not
Yeah,
even a-
because I bet you sort of felt like, then why'd I report it?
Well, I did what I could, is what I did,
Mm.
but, you know.
well, you remember Mark talking about the new investigative protocol,
Yeah.
where they're getting away from just the incident-based investigation, where, you know, no
Right.
burn, boiling water, look at the hand, no burns, closed case, that it's a broader assessment. So,
This is helpful, so
Yeah,
this
it is.
is-
Mhm.
does that
It's
help
not-
you?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not all, like, the team decision-making meeting is not in place
Yeah.
until, what, January? Or-
Yeah, this is kind of this is actually based on a model that was developed in Arizona. It's being adopted in Billings, and we jumped on the bandwagon here. And so we've been meeting as a group for,
Do you have a typical time, and I know it's not on here, a typical time between show cause and adjudication?
um, you- at show cause, the majority of the times, it's settled by stipulation,
So
which,
you don't have an adjudication then?
well, it actually, when they stipulate, they're stipulating to temporary legal custody and adjudication.
Mhm.
So that takes care of that. And if it's show cause, the party or the parent is saying that I'm gonna contest this, they will set an adjudication hearing, and there is a time frame, and I can't remember, it's short.
Mm.
And so they'll set an adjudicatory hearing, so it happens quickly.
So these, the show cause hearing is first and third Wednesday of each month, that's a court thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, like,
So-
tomorrow we'll have, it's kind of a law in motion day for dependent neglect cases.
Are we allowed to go to those?
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, if you, you know, if you wanna drop out.
Where do you go?
Can you go in? It's not confidential?
It is, but, because you're associated with CASA, they'll let you in. Once in a while, but it's usually in termination hearings, the parent will object to having a party in the courtroom that's not connected to the matter, but, and I usually, ask the attorney for the parents if they have any problem with CASA sitting in.
So should we go
Really?
through you first?
Yeah, well, just call me to make sure that we've got something on that day, because there are sometimes
Would it
when
be
there
up
aren't
at the
gonna be.
courthouse, or?
Yeah, it'll be in the district, the courthouse, second, well, actually Judge Reynolds is on the third floor, but the other three courtrooms are on the second floor.
Is that in the old federal building?
No, it's in the courthouse on Broadway.
Oh, okay. All right, so then the next question is treatment plan meetings, second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. Who goes to that?
That's gonna be primarily the attorneys. If you're appointed to the case, you're gonna be going to it.
Oh, okay. The
The
CASA goes.
social worker will be there, the attorneys for the parents. In some cases, the county attorney, she usually does not attend those.
So this is something outside of court?
Yeah, and the parents will be there.
In the case of court-appointed attorneys for the parents, I assume that the court-appointed attorney is the one who's going to have a lot of interaction with the parents, you know, prior to show cause or at show cause, you know, in terms of advising them whether they should stipulate or contest.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll lay it out for them, and of course, the parent is free to go whatever
Yeah,
direction they want to.
understand.
Now, if you're a CASA and you're assigned a case, it's if I remember correctly, we would have our own personal case file that we have to turn in to you when the
Right.
case is completed.
Mhm.
So we need to set up a case file.
Yeah.
And you were talking about this log, a case log. I was wondering if something like this is is,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what's, I carry this around for.
okay.
I
But that's part of your file.
I understand, and I guess you're just saying raw notes, I guess I would consider that, I would probably keep a case log on my computer.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of houses do.
You would remember it till you got to your computer, you'd write it down, and then go put it on your computer.
Some combination of the two.
Okay. Just curious. But that too has to be turned in, a case log.
Yeah, so you can, what you do.
Why? Why do they do that? What do you
It's
do
just a
with it?
confidentiality thing, we just,
Well, and if it's on your computer deleted? when you
yeah,
put it in,
yeah,
it has to
I
be,
guess that's,
like,
yeah.
No trace.
That's not true. I watched it.
Yeah.
It's not true.
They can find it on
Especially if it's on your
We
work.
usually, we usually keep the, you know, what you turn in for about, I don't know if we have an exact system, 2 or 3 years. Cause a lot of cases come back.
So if you've kept things like that on your computer, do we turn them in electronically or in paper copy?
I don't know. Defer to the person that knows something about.
Either or, huh?
Yeah, I thought everybody prints them out usually
Yeah.
and turns them in.
Yeah,
And they
usually,
usually type up
they
their
just, everybody
handwritten
just
notes.
has this hard file in their
But then
bags.
your handwritten notes, a
They're
lot of
yours.
people type up their handwritten notes and then destroy their handwritten
Yeah.
notes, cause then that way they don't say anything, like you've put like comments in your
Can you
notes
use
that
your
you don't.
handwritten
Oh,
notes?
okay, well, now that's different than what you said, because that was one of my very specific questions. Do you have to have our raw notes? And you said yes.
Well, if you destroy them, no problem. I mean, if you're
Transferring
transferring
them
your
onto a
notes onto
computer
the
so we have
computer,
notes.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Feel
Well,
free
you don't
better.
want your
just use
personal
our hand
comments on
notes.
policy.
Yeah,
What's-
Like
yeah.
you don't
Because I
want
don't
in
know.
order to make a
Yeah.
report,
So
you need
yeah.
to write your
I
own
didn't
personal
understand
note
your
yourself.
Right.
You know, don't forget
you
to
can
include
throw
this.
away-
But I mean,
blah,
like,
blah,
Right,
blah.
if I take my notes
Yeah.
Like
on
it's
this
on this.
and
Yeah.
put them in my computer,
Then you
and
can.
then
I'm
they
so
become
sorry.
they still become my raw notes, so to
Oh,
speak.
okay.
Like,
Well, listen, take a look at that treatment plan. You know, if you have any questions about this, we'll take it up Thursday night, but just kind of, do a little inventory for yourself as to what you feel is still in clear for you. And, we'll have
just
time
have
to
to get
discuss
into
that.
it and just do
Well,
it.
we're gonna
Yeah,
have,
that's-
at
I know, me
least
too.
three
It's like
people
that's
Very
stuff
nerve
like
wracking.
I feel like
coming
sometimes
this Thursday that won't
Yeah.
know